Part 1. Ambassador L stared at the data streams floating before his eyes and felt something his species rarely experienced: confusion. The numbers made no sense. According to every model the Galactic Diplomatic Corps had developed over 10,000 years, the human alliance with the Commonwealth should have collapsed 3 years ago. Economic pressure should have broken it. Political changes should have dissolved it. Simple mathematics of self-interest should have ended it. Instead, the alliance had grown stronger. "They call each other friends," said his assistant, a young diplomatic analyst named the human ambassador and the delegate. "They say this word frequently in their communications." El knew the word. Most species had something similar. It meant a cooperative relationship based on mutual benefit. When the benefits ended, so did the relationship. Simple, logical, universal. Except humans seem to operate on different rules. "Pull up all human diplomatic records," El said. "I want to see every alliance they have formed since joining the galactic community." The data appeared, and El felt his confusion deepen into something approaching alarm. Humans maintained relationships decades beyond any reasonable point. They sent resources to allies who could offer nothing in return. They honored agreements even when breaking them would cost them nothing. And everywhere in their communications, that word appeared: friend. "We need to understand this," El said. "If humans have discovered some method of creating permanent bonds, every species in the galaxy needs to know about it." That was how got assigned to Earth. Was a species known for their clinical observation skills and emotional detachment. Her people had studied thousands of alien cultures without ever being influenced by them. She was the perfect choice to investigate human friendship rituals. She arrived on Earth with a team of 5 researchers from different species. Their mission was simple: observe, document, and explain the mechanisms behind human bonding behavior. They started at a human university, a place their research indicated was rich with friendship formation. And her team set up observation posts around the campus, their sensors recording everything. What they saw baffled them. Humans gathered in groups to consume food when eating alone would be more efficient. They sat together in rooms watching entertainment that each could view individually. They played games that had no productive outcome, expending energy for no measurable gain. Most puzzling of all, they seemed to dedicate enormous amounts of time to simply existing in proximity to certain other humans. "This is the 3rd day we have observed Subject Group 7, said a methodical researcher, "and they have accomplished nothing. They sit in the same location each afternoon and produce nothing but sound waves that communicate no useful information." Watched the group of human students. They were laughing, a behavior she understood in theory but had never quite grasped in practice. One of them, a young female human with dark skin and bright eyes, seemed to be the center of the group's attention. She was telling a story, using excessive gestures and vocal variations that contained no additional data beyond the words themselves. Yet the other humans were clearly enjoying the performance. Their bodies displayed relaxation. Their faces showed pleasure. Their biochemistry indicated elevated levels of positive neurochemicals. "They are bonding," said softly. "This apparently wasteful activity is the mechanism." "But how?" asked. "What is the purpose of the inefficiency?" Before could answer, the human female noticed them. Most humans had grown accustomed to seeing aliens on campus, but this one approached them directly. "Hi," she said, her face arranged in what their database identified as a smile. "I'm Maya. Are you guys doing research or something?" Had been trained in human interaction protocols. "Yes, we are studying human social bonds, specifically the phenomenon you call friendship." Maya's smile grew wider. "Oh, that's so cool. I could talk about friendship forever. It's like the most important thing in the world, you know." "We do not know," admitted. "That is why we are observing." "Observing?" Maya tilted her head. You can't understand friendship just by watching it, you have to experience it. She paused, then her expression brightened with apparent inspiration. Hey, it's my birthday this Saturday. You should all come to my party. Consulted her internal database of human customs. Birthday parties were celebrations of the anniversary of one's birth. They served no practical purpose, but were considered socially significant. Attending one might provide valuable data. We accept, said. Awesome. Maya pulled out a small device and began manipulating it. I'll send you the address. Oh, and don't worry about bringing anything. Just come and have fun. After Maya left, turn 2. Was that advisable? We are meant to observe, not participate. We will treat it as a controlled experiment, said. We will document everything. Saturday arrived, and her team approached the address Maya had provided, which turned out to be a dwelling shared by several human students. Music emanated from within, and through the windows they could see multiple humans gathered inside. Maya opened the door wearing colorful clothing and still smiling. You came. Come in, come in. The interior was crowded with humans. Sensors immediately began recording. The humans were engaged in various activities, but all seemed centered around Maya. There was food arranged on tables, more than any reasonable gathering would require. Colored decorations hung from the ceiling. The music was loud, and several humans were moving their bodies in rhythm to it. This is dancing, Maya explained, noticing attention. It's just for fun. What is the productive outcome? Asked. Maya laughed. There isn't one, that's what makes it fun. A human male approached carrying a large object covered in white substance and small flames. The other humans began producing synchronized vocalizations. Its database identified this as singing, and the object as a birthday cake. Make a wish, several humans called to Maya. Maya closed her eyes briefly, then expelled air forcefully, extinguishing the flames. The humans cheered and began to applaud by striking their hands together repeatedly. What was the purpose of that ritual? Asked. The wish, Maya said. It's tradition. You make a wish when you blow out your candles. It probably won't come true, but it's nice to hope. Inefficient, muttered, but noticed the methodical researcher was still recording every detail. The party continued. Humans approached Maya one by one, presenting her with wrapped objects. She opened each one, producing exaggerated expressions of pleasure regardless of the object's apparent value. Noted that the gift givers seemed to derive satisfaction from Maya's reactions, even though they were now in resources. This is a gift exchange, observed, but it is not balanced. Maya receives while others give. It's my birthday, Maya explained. On your birthday, people give you gifts to show they care about you. Then on their birthdays, you give them gifts. So it is delayed reciprocal exchange, said. I guess, Maya looked uncertain. I mean, you don't keep track or anything. If someone can't afford a gift, that's okay. It's not about the stuff. It's about showing someone you thought about them. As the evening progressed, observed more puzzling behaviors. Humans shared stories about events they had all experienced together, despite everyone already knowing what had happened. They laughed at jokes that conveyed no new information. They touched each other frequently, brief physical contacts that seemed to serve no purpose. But instruments were recording something her theories could not explain. Every human at the party showed synchronized emotional states. Their biochemistry was remarkably similar, all elevated in the same positive neurochemicals. They were moving in subtle harmony with each other, their body language mirroring without apparent conscious effort. They were synchronizing, connecting, bonding. Near the end of the evening, Maya approached. Did you have fun? I documented significant data, said. Maya laughed. That's not what I asked. Did you enjoy yourself? Considered the question. She had consumed food items that were pleasant to her biology. She had observed humans engaging in behaviors that were interesting. And when Maya had opened gift, a carefully selected item from her, Maya's expression of joy had caused an unusual sensation in its thoracic chamber. "I believe I did," admitted. Maya smiled and suddenly moved forward, wrapping her arms around its body. The gesture was completely unexpected. Sensors identified it as a hug, a human expression of affection or comfort. The physical contact lasted only moments, but felt something shift inside her. The sensation in her thoracic chamber intensified. Her temperature regulation fluctuated. Most alarming of all, she experienced a strong desire for the contact to continue. Maya released her and stepped back. "Thank you for coming," she said warmly. "I'm really glad you were here." After leaving the party, and her team compiled their observations. They had documented everything, from the caloric excess of the cake to the precise wavelength of the decorative lights. But as reviewed the data, she realized they had captured something they could not yet explain. "The inefficiency is intentional," she said to her team. "The waste of resources, the time spent on activities with no productive outcome, the physical rituals that serve no practical purpose. These things are not failures of human logic. They are the mechanism itself." "I do not understand," said. "Neither do I," admitted. "But I believe we have been asking the wrong question. We have been trying to understand why these behaviors create bonds despite their inefficiency. Perhaps we should be asking why they create bonds because of their inefficiency." She touched her thoracic chamber, where that strange sensation still lingered. Maya had called her a friend when saying goodbye, had not understood what the word truly meant before tonight. She was beginning to suspect that understanding it would change everything. Part 2. Submitted her preliminary report to the research collective 3 days after Maya's party. The response was immediate and skeptical. "Your conclusions are contaminated by subjective experience," Director told her over the communication link. "You attended a social gathering and now claim that inefficiency is a feature rather than a flaw. This is exactly the kind of cultural influence we train observers to avoid." "With respect, Director, observation alone is insufficient," argued. "We can document human behaviors externally, but we cannot understand the mechanisms without internal experience. I request permission to proceed with immersion protocol." There was a long silence. Immersion protocol was rarely approved. It meant researchers would actively participate in the culture they were studying, risking exactly the kind of bias was concerned about. "You believe this is necessary?" asked finally. "I believe it is the only way to understand why human diplomatic bonds persist beyond rational calculation," said. "If we can identify the mechanism, we can help other species form stronger alliances." "Very well, immersion protocol approved. But if you lose your objectivity, I will pull your entire team." Contacted Maya the next day. "I have a request. We would like to learn how to form friendships with humans. Would you be willing to teach us?" Maya's face lit up on the screen. "Are you serious? That would be amazing. Yes, absolutely yes." And so began what Maya called friendship training. It started simply. Maya taught them phrases that humans used in casual interaction. "How are you?" did not actually require a detailed status report. "What's up?" was a greeting, not a request for information. "Let's hang out sometime" was an expression of interest in spending time together, not a scheduled appointment. "This is confusing," said one of the researchers. "Why do humans say things they do not mean?" "We do mean them," Maya explained patiently. "Just not literally. It's about showing you care enough to acknowledge someone, even if you don't have time for a long conversation." The second lesson was about spending time together with no agenda. Maya called this hanging out. She took, and 2 other researchers to a human establishment called a coffee shop. "We will consume beverages here," confirmed, studying the menu. "Well, yeah, but that's not really the point," Maya said. "The point is just being together. We'll talk maybe, or not, whatever feels right." They sat at a small table. Maya ordered something called a latte, selected a tea compatible with her biology. Then they simply sat. "What do we do now?" asked. "Whatever you want," Maya said. "Tell me about your home planet or ask me questions, or we can watch people, or just enjoy the coffee." Found this deeply uncomfortable at first. Every moment not spent on a task felt wasteful. But gradually, as Maya talked about her studies and her family and her plans for the future, noticed something. The conversation meandered, yes. It accomplished nothing concrete, but that sensation in her thoracic chamber returned, warm and pleasant. "This is nice," said, surprising herself. Maya grinned. "See, that's friendship, just being with someone and feeling good about it." The lessons became more complex. Maya took them to what she called a game night at her apartment. Humans gathered around a table with a board game, something involving building settlements and trading resources. "The objective is to win," asked, studying the rules. "Sure, but that's not really the important part," Maya said. "The important part is playing together." Won the first game efficiently, calculating optimal strategies and executing them flawlessly. The humans congratulated politely, but noticed they seemed less enthusiastic than she had expected. "You are disappointed?" asked Maya. "Not disappointed, exactly," Maya said carefully. "It's just more fun when everyone's engaged, you know. When we're all laughing and teasing each other and making ridiculous trades just because it's funny." The second game tried a different approach. When she could make an efficient move, she sometimes chose a less optimal one that allowed for interaction with other players. When another player made a mistake, she laughed with them instead of calculating how to exploit it. And something remarkable happened. The humans became more animated. They joked and told stories. When made a deliberately bad trade just to help another player, everyone laughed and the warmth in her thoracic chamber intensified. "You're getting it," Maya whispered to her. "You're actually getting it." The real test came 2 weeks later. Maya's friend Jenna had experienced what humans called a breakup. Her romantic partner had ended their relationship. Maya asked to come with her to comfort Jenna. "What will we do?" asked. "Just be there for her," Maya said. They found Jenna in her apartment, crying. The human's face was wet, her body language indicated distress, and her vocalizations were irregular and clearly painful. Maya sat beside Jenna and put her arms around her. "I'm so sorry," Maya said softly. "I thought he loved me," Jenna sobbed. I know. Watched, her instruments recording everything. But something felt wrong about standing there with scientific detachment while Jenna suffered. Slowly moved to Jenna's other side. She placed her hand on Jenna's shoulder, mimicking Maya's gesture of comfort. "We are here," said. They sat like that for over an hour. Maya and said very little. They offered no solutions. They transferred no resources. They simply remained present while Jenna cried. Afterward, scanned Jenna with her instruments. The human stress markers had decreased by 47%. Her biochemistry showed evidence of emotional regulation returning to normal levels. "We did nothing," said to Maya as they left. "We solved nothing. We changed nothing about her situation." "We were there," Maya said. "Sometimes that's everything." That night, lay in her quarters reviewing the data. She had spent weeks now learning human friendship rituals. Game nights and coffee shops and birthday parties and comfort sessions. Every single one had been inefficient by her species standards. Every single one had accomplished nothing that could be measured in traditional terms. But's own biochemistry had changed. She found herself thinking about Maya frequently. She anticipated their meetings with something her database reluctantly identified as excitement. When Maya sent her text messages, those brief communications with no substantial content experienced pleasure. She was forming a bond, an actual, emotional, non-rational bond with a human. The revelation should have alarmed her. Instead, it felt right. Over the next month, the immersion continued. Maya took them to a concert where thousands of humans gathered to hear music. The sound was overwhelming, the crowd was chaotic, but felt something she had never experienced before. As the humans around her sang along to songs she did not know, she felt her consciousness merge with theirs. Separate beings becoming one collective experience of rhythm and emotion and shared joy. They went on what Maya called a road trip, driving for hours to visit a location of no particular significance. The journey was inefficient, the route was longer than necessary, and they sang incorrect lyrics to songs at high volume the entire way. It was wonderful. I have a hypothesis, told her team one evening. Humans do not form bonds despite the inefficiency of their rituals. They form bonds because of the inefficiency. By investing time and energy and resources into activities with no practical purpose, they demonstrate commitment. The waste itself is the signal. The vulnerability of doing pointless things together is what creates trust. That is irrational, said, but the methodical researcher's tone was less certain than before. Had also been forming friendships with humans and had observed the changes in her colleagues' behavior. Perhaps agreed, but it works. Then, 48 days into the immersion protocol, received an urgent communication from Director. The Methodical Confederation has reviewed your reports, said, his expression grave. They have determined that your team has been compromised by cultural contamination. They are demanding your immediate extraction. What? Felt that thoracic sensation again, but this time it was painful. We are gathering unprecedented data on human bonding mechanisms. They believe you have abandoned scientific objectivity. They claim you have formed emotional attachments that compromise your ability to analyze human behavior rationally. That is the entire point, argued. We cannot understand these mechanisms without experiencing them. The decision has been made. You have 48 hours to conclude your research and prepare for departure. I'm sorry. The connection ended. Sat in silence for a long moment processing the information. She would have to leave Earth, leave her research, leave her team. Leave Maya. The pain in her thoracic chamber intensified. This was what humans called heartbreak, she realized. This was what happened when bonds were formed and then severed. She understood friendship now. She understood it completely, and that understanding was going to destroy her. Part 3. Requested a meeting with Maya the next morning. They met at their usual coffee shop, but could not bring herself to order anything. The pleasure she usually felt in this place was gone, replaced by that aching pain in her thoracic chamber. What's wrong? Maya asked immediately. I can tell something's wrong. I have been ordered to leave Earth, said. In 48 hours I must return to I am not permitted to return. Maya's face changed. Her eyes became wet and her expression crumpled in a way that's database identified as devastation. No, they can't do that. The Methodical Confederation believes I have lost my objectivity, explained. They say I have been compromised by emotional attachment. Well, yeah, Maya said, and a tear ran down her face. You're my friend, of course you're emotionally attached, that's the whole point. I have failed as a researcher, said. You haven't failed at anything, Maya said fiercely. You've succeeded at being a good friend. That matters more than any research. Felt wetness on her own face. She was crying. She had never cried before. The biological function felt appropriate for the circumstances. I do not want to leave, she admitted. I want to stay here with you, with all of this. Maya reached across the table and took his hand. Then we'll find a way. I'm not losing you without a fight. That evening, Maya called an emergency meeting at her apartment. She had invited not just its research team, but also several human friends who studied law, diplomacy, and philosophy. The apartment was crowded, and everyone looked serious. Okay, Maya said, standing at the center of the room. Here's the situation. and her team are being forced to leave because they formed friendships with us. But I've been thinking about this all day, and I have an idea. It's crazy, but it might work." She pulled up documents on a large screen. According to galactic law, diplomatic treaties are binding agreements that must be honored by all member species. Treaties create obligations that transcend individual interests. "Right. That is correct," said one of his team members. "And according to human philosophy, friendship is a bond that creates mutual obligations," Maya continued. "Friends have responsibilities to each other. They support each other, protect each other, honor their commitments to each other. These bonds can last entire lifetimes." "I still do not see the connection," said. Maya smiled. "What if friendship is a kind of treaty? What if, by participating in human friendship rituals, you and your team actually entered into binding social contracts with us? Contracts that are protected under galactic diplomatic law." The room fell silent, felt her thought processes accelerating, examining the argument from every angle. "That is absurd," said, but there was hope in the methodical researcher's voice. "Friendship is an emotional state, not a legal contract." "Is it though?" said one of Maya's friends who studied law. "Think about it. Friendships have implicit rules. You don't betray friends. You help them when they need it. You honor your commitments to them. These are binding social obligations. We may not write them down, but they're real." "And we can prove the bonds exist," said another human, a neuroscience student named Sarah. "'S own data shows measurable neurological changes, permanent biochemical alterations. These aren't just feelings. They're physical transformations that result from the bonding process." Maya pulled up more documents. "I've been researching galactic treaty law. Article 7, Section 3 says that any binding agreement between citizens of member species that creates mutual obligations must be recognized by all member governments. It doesn't specify what form those agreements must take." "You are arguing that our friendships are legally binding treaties," said slowly. "Exactly," Maya said. "And if that's true, then the methodical confederation can't just break them. That would be a violation of galactic law." "This will never work," said, but even as she spoke, she was reviewing the legal codes in her database. The argument was creative, perhaps too creative, but it was not obviously wrong. "We have to try," Maya said. "I'm not giving up on you." The next 36 hours were chaos. Maya and her friends compiled evidence while and her team prepared their case. They gathered neurological data showing permanent changes in both humans and aliens who had formed friendships. They documented the implicit rules and obligations that governed their relationships. They collected testimony from dozens of people about how their friendships had influenced their decisions and behaviors. Most importantly, they researched human history. They found thousands of examples of people making irrational choices because of friendship. Soldiers who died protecting friends. Business partners who sacrificed profits for loyalty. Entire nations that maintained alliances through economic hardship because of personal bonds between leaders. "This is our strongest evidence," Maya said, compiling the historical data. "Friendship doesn't just create bonds. It creates bonds strong enough to override self-interest. Bonds that last through circumstances that would break any purely rational agreement." They submitted their case to the Galactic Diplomatic Corps just hours before scheduled departure. The response came faster than anyone expected. The case had been escalated to the High Adjudication Council, the highest legal authority in the galactic community. "They are taking this seriously," said, reading the notification. "They are actually considering the argument." The hearing was scheduled for the following week. During that time, something unexpected happened. Other species began submitting testimony. A delegate admitted that she had formed a friendship with a human ambassador, and that this bond had been the real reason for maintaining their alliance through difficult times. A methodical businessman that his human friend had taught him the value of relationships beyond transactions. A scientist confessed that she had been secretly meeting with human friends for years, finding in those relationships a richness her own culture lacked. By the time the hearing arrived, over 300 individuals from 40 different species had submitted testimony about their friendships with humans. The High Adjudication Council reviewed the evidence for 6 hours, sat in the chamber with Maya beside her, holding her hand. The physical contact helped steady her. Finally, the chief adjudicator spoke. This council has reviewed the arguments presented regarding the legal status of human friendship bonds. The question before us is whether these emotional and social bonds constitute binding agreements under galactic law. Felt Maya's hand tighten around hers. The evidence presented is extraordinary, the adjudicator continued. We have seen neurological data proving that friendship creates measurable, permanent changes in participants. We have seen historical evidence that these bonds influence behavior as strongly as any written contract. We have seen testimony from hundreds of individuals across dozens of species, all confirming that friendship with humans creates obligations they feel bound to honor. The adjudicator paused. Most significantly, we have seen evidence that these bonds have created stronger and more lasting alliances than many formal treaties. The stability and persistence of human diplomatic relationships has been documented. The mechanism appears to be exactly what the petitioners claim: friendship. Therefore, this council rules that friendship, as practiced by humans and adopted by willing participants of other species, does constitute a form of binding social contract. These contracts create mutual obligations that are protected under Article 7, Section 3 of Galactic Treaty Law. Maya gasped, felt something release in her thoracic chamber, the pain transforming into something else entirely. Furthermore, the adjudicator said, any attempt to forcibly separate individuals who have formed such bonds without cause will be considered a violation of treaty law. Researcher and her team have not failed in their scientific objectivity. They have succeeded in forming bonds that our laws must recognize and protect. The ruling was unanimous, and her team were granted permanent residency on Earth as friendship ambassadors. The methodical confederation, bound by galactic law, had to accept the decision. Maya threw her arms around, and this time did not need her database to understand the gesture. She wrapped her own arms around Maya and held on. We did it, Maya whispered. You get to stay. We did it together, said, as friends. 5 years passed. Stood in the lobby of the Galactic Friendship Institute, watching new groups of aliens arrive for their orientation. The institute had grown beyond anything she had imagined. Thousands of individuals from across the galaxy came here each year to learn what she had learned, that friendship was not a weakness but a strength. The motto Maya had suggested hung above the entrance in 17 languages. Efficiency is survival, but friendship is living. Maya arrived carrying 2 cups of coffee, their weekly ritual unchanged after all this time. They sat in their favorite corner, not because it was efficient or productive, but simply because it was theirs. Another good group today, Maya said. I think the delegation is really going to get it. They already understand the concept of chosen family. We have 43 new species requesting training next quarter, said. The demand continues to grow. Of course it does, Maya said. Everyone wants what we have. Looked at her friend. Maya had aged in human years, small lines appearing around her eyes, but she was exactly as beautiful as the day they had met. I have been thinking about my final research report, said. The one I will submit to the research collective. Yeah, what's your conclusion? Considered her words carefully. I will say that humans survive in the galaxy not because they are stronger or smarter or more advanced than other species. They survive because they understand something fundamental that others are only beginning to learn. What's that? Maya asked, though suspected she already knew. That the strongest bonds are not forged through efficiency or logic or mutual benefit, said. They are forged through shared laughter and mutual vulnerability and invested time, through all the inefficient, illogical, wonderful things you call friendship. These bonds do not just help humans survive. They make survival worth something. Maya smiled and raised her coffee cup. To friendship, then, the most powerful force in the galaxy. Touched her cup to Maya's, the gentle clink a small ritual that meant everything. To friendship, she agreed. Outside, the galaxy turned, full of species learning that humanity's greatest gift was not their technology or their diplomacy or their adaptability. It was their understanding that some things, the most important things, could not be measured or calculated or optimized. They could only be felt and shared and cherished, one inefficient moment at a time.